So this video is going to give you a quick overview of both higher and standard level chemistry, what's in the course, what the test is like, and details like that. So first of all, a quick look at the syllabus. The syllabus for SL and HL actually covers the exact same topics, which is a bit different than the biology and physics syllabi, where the HL course does actually different topics in addition to the SL core topics. For chemistry, you've got 11 core topics. This is how the IB has ordered them. We'll do them in slightly different order, but obviously we'll cover all of them. So that's the standard level material. And then you can see that for the HL, for example, topic 2 is atomic structure. Well, topic 12, so add 10 to that number, and you get the additional higher level material that's also on atomic structure. So then we've got periodicity, being about the periodic table and the periodic trends, is topic 3. Topic 13 is the higher level material on the periodic table, which focuses on the transition metals. So rather than doing different topics, the higher level class does extra, more in-depth, more complex material about the same topics as the SL class does. And usually it involves a bit more calculation, some more equations, a bit more complex material. Then you'll see at the bottom there are these things called the options. They are an option in the sense that we have to do one of them, but the one that we do, we get to choose. Usually that means the teacher gets to choose, and depending on what year you're watching this video in, that may mean that I assign one for the entire class to do, or it may mean that I present options and we choose as a class, or perhaps the class splits up and part of the class does one of them and part of the class does another. At this point, I've had students do biochemistry, I've had students do energy, and I've also had students do really what turned into medicinal chemistry when we were on the previous syllabus of the IB. So you will pick one. You personally will cover one of these topics. It's sort of like an extra chapter where you get a little bit of choice in what extra chapter you cover. So materials looks at things like plastics and metal alloys and semiconductors and things like that. Biochemistry is going to look at a lot of the important biological molecules, but a bit more on a chemistry level. So looking at proteins and lipids and carbohydrates and DNA. Energy is really all about different energy sources. So solar energy, nuclear energy, looking in depth at what happens when we get crude oil and how we refine that. So that's pretty relevant for today's world. And medicinal chemistry, as the name implies, obviously looks at common drugs that you would have heard of and what their chemical structures are, how they interact with the body, but also looking at things like nuclear medicine, like radiation treatment and things like that. So different aspects of medicine and how they relate to chemistry. So that's the course. Those are the topics that you'll cover, and you'll just cover them in more depth if you do the HL course. Okay, so how do you earn your IB score? 80% of your score comes from the IB exam. The IB exam is taken in May of grade 12, and it's assessed on 3 different papers, as they are called. Paper 1 and paper 2 are taken on the first day, and paper 3 is taken on the second day. So for the higher level, paper 1 is a 1-hour, 40-question multiple choice test. It covers all topics from the core syllabus, so not from the option, but from all of those other SL and HL topics. Paper 2 also covers those same topics, only from the core and not from the option. It's a very long paper, 95 marks, and 2 hours and 15 minutes on one paper. So this is short answer, it's calculations, it's some graphing questions, some data interpretation questions. Paper 1 and 2 obviously make up the bulk. They make up 56% of your overall IB grade. So they are very, very important. And then on the second day of testing, you're going to take what's called paper 3. Paper 3 is 45 marks, an hour and 15 minutes long. Paper 3 is divided into 2 sections. Part A, which is data-based question and questions on experimental work. Now, these questions in Part A will be taken by every single person in the world who takes the exam that day. There's not a great way, there is some preparation you can do, but there's not exactly material that you should have studied to take these questions. It's really seeing how you can interpret new data. And these questions are about labs that we would have done in class and sort of how you can evaluate a method and suggest improvements. And then you have short answer questions in section B. Those questions are all about that option that you've chosen. So that you choose to answer the questions about biochemistry or about energy or about medicinal chemistry, whichever option you've covered in the class. So that's the IB exam. The difference for the standard level is clearly that the exam is shorter and it also covers less material because you haven't had to do all the additional higher level extra material. So paper 1 is 30 marks and 45 minutes long. Paper 2 is 50 marks and an hour and 15 minutes long. And paper 3 is 35 marks. And still section A, section B. And actually the section A here is identical to the section A of the higher level test. So that part with the database question and the experimental questions are the same on both tests. But part B here on biochemistry or energy would be a bit shorter and only on the SL material for that option. So that's 80% of your grade, ending grade, your IB score. The other 20% comes from what's called your internal assessment, which is really a big lab report. You're going to prepare for this by doing small experiments and small lab reports throughout grade 11. We'll also normally do the planning for this at the end of grade 11, and then you'll carry out and complete your investigation and the lab report at the start of grade 12. It's a lab report that's about 6 to 12 pages long, and you get about 10 hours of in-class time to collect the data. It's your own individual investigation. You've come up with the research question, and with some guidance and feedback from me, you're going to carry out your own investigation. If you've been at the school for long, this is something that you've done at the MYP level. And so the difference now is it's a bit more sophisticated and a bit more independent than it would have been when you were in grades 9 or 10. But obviously there will be a lot of build up to this, and we'll talk about all the criteria that you'll be graded on many times and over many videos, so you feel confident in what's expected of you. In addition to the lab work for the IA, there are different lab hour requirements, like 60 hours for the HL and 40 hours for the SL, which we'll cover no problem. We'll also do something called the Group 4 project in May of grade 11, which is a really fun interdisciplinary science project day, actually 2 days, where you get to work with people from all different science classes on a bunch of science challenges. You should also know as you start the course that you will be expected to have certain math skills, probably the most important of which is being able to do some decent mental math in terms of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. On paper 1, there is no calculator, and so you have to be able to do some math without your calculator. You're going to have to do things with standard notation or scientific notation. Being able to do some algebra problems is very important. Understanding how to plot graphs and interpret graphs, all things like that. So it's nothing that you need for like higher level math, but those core mathematical skills, having quick skills and being strong in them is going to really, really help you out in the IB chemistry course. So that's an overview of IB chemistry course, some of the skills you need, what the major assignments are that you're going to be graded on, and the topics that we're going to cover.